Hey everybody, my name is Sam, this is Rush Reality. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I want to talk to you about the future of Meta in the VR space. Now this video was prompted by a couple of bits of interesting news that have come out over the past couple of weeks or so that could lead you to think one of two things. Firstly, that they're doing alright and there's some exciting stuff coming up, or secondly, that they might be in a bit of trouble and if they don't adapt their plans, then things might not work out the way they'd expected. The first bit of news that came out is that Meta announced to their employees that they're going to be closing off some of their AR and VR projects. They're going to be cutting their forecast spend on development to the tune of around $5 billion. Now that is no small number. Now the Vice President of VR and AR for Meta, Andrew Bosworth, does a little AMA on his Instagram quite often where he answers just random questions that have been sent in by people following him. And this week someone sent in a question that alluded to this reduction in spend and said, are we going to be seeing things slow down a little?
I think the answer to this question is yes in the short to mid-term, maybe no in the long term. Why is that? Well, certainly you're right. Across the entire industry, not just at Meta, we're seeing the rate of growth slow down. I think we will slow down a little bit in the 5 to 10 year view.
He went on to add that in a decade or so, we might look back and say, yeah, that was the right thing to do.
But I think over the longer period, we might end up seeing that this was really healthy and cause us to focus on the right things and accelerate investments in those things.
Now, we don't yet know what these cancelled projects are, if we ever find out what they actually had in the works. But we do know what their forecast spend on research looks like it's going to be over the coming years. Now, as I said, they're cutting $5 billion, but the forecast spend they've left in looks around $87 to $92 billion over the next 5 years or so. That is a reduction from the originally forecast $90 to $95 billion. So even with that 5 taken away and those cancelled projects, there is still an insanely large amount of money being invested into this project. So why are they tightening the purse strings? Well, we know it's been a rocky year for Meta as a company. Back when they announced their name change from Facebook to Meta, their stocks really took a plummet and that's continued throughout the year. Meta is actually the worst performing big tech stock of 2022. But things like that do happen. How many times have we seen Tesla's stock drop off because of something Elon Musk has done, only to bounce back months later and see the company continue to grow into a powerhouse? But that's still not to say it's all rosy. I can't say from an outside point of view that Meta's name change and their ongoing focus on the Metaverse has gone particularly well for them. We're hearing the Metaverse spoken about quite a lot lately, but it's mainly spoken by businesses who are trying to capitalise on it or people who are already invested in that space. The average consumer isn't really talking about the Metaverse, if indeed they actually understand what it is. It's almost impossible to use the word in any public space without seeing a bit of an argument take place in the comments about whether it exists, whether it's always been there, what it actually is, and anything along those kind of lines. And moving away from the Oculus name and putting Meta on the hardware also hasn't gone particularly well. I continually still hear the name Oculus used by consumers. It's something that has really left a bit of a mark, and if they're going to want to get away from that going forwards, then it's going to take some effort. If indeed that is the right thing to do, maybe it's still time to backpedal, because that name carries a lot of cachet and there's a lot of people are sad to see it go. Now, up against these possible changes of direction by Meta, we've seen some positive news coming from the company. We've seen some glimpses of their new hardware with a demo by Mark Zuckerberg of the new MetaCambria headset showing some really exciting stuff. The video showcased the mixed reality powers of the headset with some really impressive colour pass-through being utilised by a number of apps. Now, I thought it looked incredible and it's the most impressive example I've seen of that idea. Now, I don't actually have much interest in using it the way they showed. I don't particularly want to pull a virtual fitness instructor into the room I'm already sat in to help me work out. If anything, I like the fact that VR transports you away from the dull setting you're already in. But I do think the colour pass-through could be really good for solving some of the other issues VR has. For me personally, I can't always just sit in my headset because I've got a little kid, I've got my wife around me and I need to be interacting with the environment around me, so I can't hide away with my headset on. Now, the magic of this colour pass-through means that you won't necessarily need to always feel separated from those around you when you get your headset on. I also think it would be amazing for productivity because it would be so slick and easy to work with your desk and your computer, but place yourself in a situation where you might be surrounded by other co-workers in their own spaces, but all able to collaborate in a really smooth and efficient way. I think it could be awesome. We also had confirmation that Meta has a roadmap with 4 new headsets expected to land by the end of 2024. This shows that although they might think things are slowing down, they do still have some really exciting stuff coming up and things are going to be pushing forwards in some way. So what's the truth then? What does the future actually look like for Meta? Well, I think they're just about to enter one of the most pivotal stages of their journey. We now know that there are around 10 million Quest 2 headsets that have been sold. We know that over $1 billion has been spent on the Quest store. Those are massive numbers, and that is much more than anyone would have expected a few years ago. But when viewed against an R&D budget of $90 billion, it kind of pales in significance, and you see they've got a long way to go if they want to see a return on that. For me, it feels like they've just come to the end of the early adoption phase and they need to get some mainstream uptake. Now, the way they do this is by spreading the net and getting more people to get involved. They've just made a massive step forwards in this because they've opened the first Meta store. That is a physical location that people can go to and actually try out the hardware. Now, that is massive because one of the biggest stumbling blocks that they've hit so far is that if you wanted to try out the hardware for the first time, you had to A, either know somebody that already had a headset, or B, go out and drop hundreds of pounds on some hardware yourself. There has been nowhere that you can just go out and try it before you buy. Now, admittedly, they've only opened one store, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's the first of many. Now, they've said for ages that they expect it to be a while before their investment starts to pay off. So we are still early in that journey. But one of the big concerns is we also know that there is big competition on the way. There is loads and loads of signs pointing to Apple releasing their VR headset very soon. We've seen mentions of the Reality OS in the code behind some of their products. Now, there is no other reason why they would use a name like that. They are definitely making the final touches on something big. Now, that could be a concern for Meta. Meta wants to get as much of a stake in the space as they possibly can, and that means pulling in as many people as possible. I believe the next 2 years will be vital to deciding whoever gets to lead the space going forwards. So there you have it, that is my thoughts. Do you think things are going a little differently? Then let me know in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the like button, and if you want to join me in the future, then a sub to the channel would be amazing. I'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Goodbye.